What's poppin', people? It's Dante. Today we're going to be discussing how to get into the street photography flow state. Now, I believe the flow state, it's what gives life meaning and purpose and flavor. I find that when I'm out there and I'm shooting photographs, I enter this meditative state of simply observing patterns in nature and human behavior, whether I'm watching the light and the way it casts upon surfaces and gives form and shape to people, places, and things, or the way that people move on the street and the way that people gesture and dance upon the concrete. There's something about the way in which I enter the flow state on the streets that gives me the ability to press the shutter at these decisive moments where ultimately photography requires you to be in tune with your intuition and in tune with the rhythm and the beat of the street. And so entering the street photography flow state is very critical. And I find this photograph to reflect this notion of the flow state as I am fully immersed in the moment, pressing the shutter, similar to this man here who's immersed in the moment, engaged at this foggy scene. And you can actually see right off the bat, he's simply taking a selfie, right? He's taking a selfie at the scene, which is relatively boring in a photograph, frankly. However, by being there and being present and shooting through the scene, I came home with this image here on the left-hand side of the contact sheet that has a bit more mystery, that is a bit more engaging and asks more questions as he's not facing directly to the camera. I'm shooting from the distance as he's emerged in this mist here on this rainy day. And I find that when you're out there and you're photographing in the spirit of play and you enter the flow state of clicking the shutter more, recognizing these patterns more, and being laser focused and present in that moment, we can achieve this feeling of bliss, frankly, where achieving flow state is actually very simple. And I believe that the most simple and fundamental way that we can do this is by eliminating all distractions. And so firstly, putting your phone away, keeping the notifications off, just not checking it, really immersing yourself in the present moment is essential. But the flow state is where photography feels natural. Photography feels effortless. It's this approach to the streets where honestly, it's kind of hard to describe, but you simply keep clicking the shutter. You keep finding interesting moments. You keep photographing through your walk. You're so in tune with your surroundings that you're ultimately making more photographs where you're not overthinking. There's no hesitation. You're just connected with the streets, right? Moving like water, reacting and anticipating to the moments that come towards you without fear. And this to me is what it's all about and what achieving the flow state in street photography means to me. And so I'm going to describe more in this video here behind the scenes while I'm on the street exactly what I mean by this flow state. And so maybe this video will give you a better understanding of what I'm talking about here. What's poppin', people? It's Dante on the streets of Philly, photographing with the Ricoh Go3X. And yeah, I'm just thinking today about street photography flow, right? The flow state, street photography flow state, right? How to achieve the flow state and why achieve this state of, being where you are in your zone, right? That's kind of the saying a lot of times, when you're in the zone, when you're really just focused on making and moving your body. This, I believe, is how to achieve a state of meditation, truly. Moving your physical body through the world in the great outdoors and recognizing the patterns in both nature and human behavior and photographing through your intuition, right? To follow your gut and to allow your curiosity at the end of the day lead you through life. And as a photographer, yeah, I think this is critical to be in a state of play, in a state of becoming where you're tapping into your childlike intuition. And to go slow, right? To enter this state of flow where you're moving like water fluidly and life is flowing towards you, right? They'll be rushing around on their phones, moving suitcases around, whatever they're doing. You let them go to and fro, but you stay put like a rock in your Zen zone, moving at a slow pace, moving at a pace that's slower than everyone else on the street, right? As the bystander, the observer of life, the photographer, I believe to stay in a slow pace will allow you to enter this flow state, where the slower you walk on the block, the more details you will find. and the more photographs you will ultimately make. And this, to me, is the goal, right? Making more pictures. So by walking slowly, you can achieve this goal. And so when you're in the flow and you're going slow, don't stop. Don't let the distractions cloud your mind, right? Just be like a rock. Harden. And so here are some of the photographs I made during that 1-minute strip of me speaking about the flow state, where you see I'm photographing random things that maybe go seemingly unnoticed or you may not think are interesting in a photograph. But essentially when you slow your physical body down and you're walking 75% slower than the people on the street, you can enter and achieve this flow state as the bystander by observing these mundane moments, observing the light and the way it's casted upon the buildings and the street itself, observing the details, the door knockers, the windows, the different things that make up the infrastructure of urban life. And as I'm walking, I see these patterns on the walls. I'm honing in on details and I'm finding these different shapes to intrigue me. And as I'm hyper aware of these different elements entering the flow state and making more photographs than less, I recognize these fleeting moments. I see when it's ready and I'm prepared and I'm ready to press the shutter. Right, so you can see in this video, as I was speaking there, this woman goes to itch her back. And as I was entering this scene, photographing these random things, by being in this flow state, I was able to essentially make this photograph of this very particular decisive moment that happened in that split second. But because I'm so immersed in my surroundings and have this sharp visual acuity of recognizing these different moments and recognizing these different patterns and slowing my physical body down allows me to see these things and allows me to respond quickly. It allows me to photograph without hesitation, where in this particular moment I knew that I must go from snap focus to single point autofocus and change my setting quickly. Just click the FN button, get really close to the subject, click the shutter, and move on. And so you essentially want to stop thinking, right, and simply be. And so the more you think, the less you see. The less you think, the more you photograph. And so by removing distractions and trusting your instincts, you can achieve this flow state. And so I encourage you, if something intrigues you even 0.001%, just click the shutter. Just go out there and press the shutter more, and it's inevitable that you will enter this flow state and find these kind of decisive moments that you want to photograph. And so here is another example of me achieving flow. And this isn't necessarily something that is rigid and there's only one way to be in the flow state. But I believe that by embracing the spirit of play and actually being fully present in the moment at whatever scene you're photographing, you can achieve this state of flow that allows you to create more compelling photos. And so here in Mumbai, I'm engaged at the scene and I'm playing soccer with a group of locals. Football, yes. Messi, okay, Messi. Hey. I know one thing.
Where are you from?
America.
America?
Yeah. And you are from Mumbai. And so I don't believe that being in the flow state requires you to be this stealthy street photographer on the sidelines of life. But I find that the best photographs come from being an active participant in the drama of the street, by being out there on the front lines of life, immersed in the moments. And for me, being present and being engaged in the flow state is a very fluid approach, where sometimes I'm a fly on the wall at certain scenes, or other times I'm engaged and playful. And this allows me to enter the flow state more productively through making more photographs by engaging with life itself. And I find that when I'm out there and I'm photographing, I'm simply walking with no destination. I don't necessarily plan my route every day. I simply let the street guide me. One of the funny things I do, frankly, when I start my street photography walks in my hometown is once I get to the first corner where there's a street light, it's either I go straight or I go right. And depending on which light turns green first, I make my decision. And so I kind of allow the streets and the beat of the street to guide my decisions and whether I go left or go right. And I simply just follow my curiosity rather than any expectations or destinations. And so I believe actually the less that you structure your walks, the more open you are to these surprises that occur on the streets. And so entering flow is all about letting go. It's all about detaching from the outcome. It's about detaching from any expectations of the photographs that you make. By shooting without judgment and not necessarily analyzing things too critically will allow you to enter the state of flow where you're simply reacting and not thinking. And so it's important to forget about good or bad photos and simply shoot first and then edit later and whittle down to your keeper photo. Here you can see this contact sheet from Rome where I was photographing a scene of two nuns. And you can see actually in the contact sheet, I'll zoom in here and show you exactly what I'm looking at. I'm photographing something very seemingly mundane, right? I'm having my intrigue be these two nuns, and I'm shooting vertically as we have two subjects, and I figured that would be a good way to photograph the scene. I'm shooting from behind, so there's not as much interest in the photo. However, by being there and being present and shooting through the scene, I was able to observe as this woman on the street corner was also waiting to cross the street, reaching for the back of her shoulder to scratch an itch, similar to that photo I showed you from behind the scenes in Philadelphia. And so by remaining laser focused and not necessarily thinking, oh, this is going to be a great photo, but just photographing what intrigues you, looking at the light and shadow play, following your curiosity, sometimes these moments, they reveal themselves to you. They just come naturally through entering flow. And then you're simply there and you're prepared to press the shutter. And this to me is what it's all about. It's about entering this flow state of production, of making more photos, not thinking too much, not necessarily wondering if the moment is worth photographing, but just photographing it anyway because your curiosity is guiding you at the forefront. The light and shadow is intriguing. Make some photos. Let's see what it'll manifest to be in a photograph. Let's see what happens next. Ultimately, it paid off here in this moment as the woman reached back. I was there and I was prepared and ready to respond very quickly to grab this photo. And so you become very in tune with the rhythm and the beat of the street through observing the way people walk, how the light shifts, how people move and gesture at the scenes. This to me is what it's all about. It's about, as much as photography is this visual game where we have this sharp visual acuity, we have two eyes that are connected to our brain that allow us to see and perceive these moments. It's a very fluid act of moving your physical body, where photography for me is this physical pleasure. And so I believe it's best to allow your body to move in harmony with the streets and to simply go slow. And the more you're in tune with your surroundings, the more you will see these different moments and they will just naturally reveal themselves to you. And so I encourage you to embrace the physical nature of life, embrace the art of walking and going slowly on the street and really slowing your physical body down, and or even similarly, match the energy of the street. If you're in a bustling market, maybe it's good to be on your toes more. There's something about simply embracing the rhythm of the street that will allow you to observe these moments. And here in Mumbai, as the light shifted and we have the golden hour, I position myself in this place where the light is striking under the bridge. And as this car spontaneously arrived, I responded with my intuition to press the shutter as these two boys were inside of the vehicle. And as they looked out the window, we have this moment where the light is casted perfectly at the scene. And this came through me simply being there and being prepared to press the shutter. As the car pulled up, this is a very spontaneous moment to occur. However, by being hyper aware of my surroundings, I was able to execute this photo. And so I encourage you to simplify your setup, right? In terms of the gear and the technicality of things, one camera and one lens, I believe, is essential, where you don't want to be fiddling with two different cameras and going back and forth between lenses. And, this is my personal preference and how I achieve flow. And so I simply set my camera into automatic modes, whether I'm using program mode or the AV mode using aperture priority. This allows me to eliminate these distractions of worrying about my camera settings. And so essentially, the less you have to adjust your camera settings, the more focused you're going to be on life in front of you. And so as I was photographing this scene in Coney Island, as this couple was dancing under the boardwalk, we have very tricky lighting. And I because I use these automatic settings on my camera, all I had to do was crank my exposure valuation and increase the exposure by a stop or two to make this photo. I didn't have to think about my aperture, my shutter speed, my ISO. I just simply cranked the dial, increased the exposure, and used snap focus and pressed the shutter. And so it's very important to be on your toes and to be quick to respond to these moments, and that sort of technical barrier can sometimes limit photographers. And so I encourage you to simplify your process as much as possible. And so this will allow you to enter flow. By simplifying your gear, simplifying your settings, you can then embrace your instincts over making these perfect composed photos. If something catches your eye, just shoot it. It happens very naturally, this flow state. It's all about trusting your intuition and not hesitating, essentially. And I find that the best photos simply come through entering the flow, frankly. And so when you stop thinking and you're not analyzing, and you're simply forgetting about the outcome, trusting yourself, and simply embracing the spirit of play where, we have a past, we have a future, but these things aren't of my concern. When I'm on the street, I find that I exist outside the passage of time. I'm not necessarily worried about what time it is, what's going on in my life, what's next, what's going on tomorrow, what's on the calendar, the agenda. I'm kind of just following the light and just entering the flow. And that to me is the beauty of this thing, where in Mumbai, India, I simply follow the sunlight. I know that if I position myself by the ocean here during the golden hour, we're going to have this beautiful golden light. And so I'm following the light, I'm following the sun. And then as I approached this scene, I found that I was photographing this very beautiful moment with this colorful wall and this child playing with a basketball and all of the stars aligned here at the scene as we have something made with more complexity. Where at the scene, I photographed the decisive moment of the boy engaged with this ball here that's in flight. We have this foreground element of this boy looking back at you with his gesture. We have in the background this man here with his green shirt on that matches the color of the wall. We have this dog that swooped by in relationship to that sculpture that's on the background on the wall. We have these different shapes here from that sort of circular basket, that woven basket there on the right hand side, and these different elements that break up the frame and make for a more complex and compelling image. But it came through me just entering the flow and me deciding, this is without destinations. I'm in a random place in Mumbai. I'm not anywhere particular. I'm not in some bustling market where I know I can make a great photo. I'm simply deciding in this moment, it's about to be sunset. Let me hop in one of these rickshaws and tell him, I don't know where I'm going. I tell the guy in the taxi when I got to this location, I said, hey, just take me closer to the beach. Take me to where's the beach? Take me there, right? And he takes me to the beach. And then I'm walking around and I'm in this neighborhood and I wound up making this photograph because I'm in this flow state of simply following the light and positioning myself in a place where I have good light. And then through following the light and through following my intuition and just letting my curiosity guide me without any expectations in mind, I'm gifted with a great photograph, right? And so I believe that you should not overthink things. Don't overthink your shots, right? Simply train your eye to see and react faster. So make more photos. This is very critical. I encourage you to snap the shutter more, especially if you're photographing with a digital camera. These days you can enter the flow state much more easily. And I think this will actually increase your ability to make more successful shots. The more you fail, the more you photograph, the better you'll become. And so simply get lost in the moment, right? And recognize that the camera, it's an extension of your body. It's an extension of your arm, of your mind, of your eyes. And so when you're entering the flow state and you're photographing, as a practical suggestion, I prefer using the LCD screen on my camera. You even saw in that moment that I photographed in Mumbai behind the scenes, I was using the flip down LCD. And the reason being is I find that it's much more fluid in terms of composing than raising the camera to my eye. And it's one less distracting interaction that I have between me and pressing the shutter, if that makes sense. And so by using the LCD screen, there's just one less movement that I have to make by raising the camera to my eye. And so by using the LCD screen, I can grab shots quicker. And so honestly, that does allow me to enter flow much more efficiently. And that's just my practical way in which I like to photograph. And so that also allows me to embrace imperfection as well as the wonkiness of a composition, or the sort of unpredictability and the spontaneity of the streets might unfold more naturally through photographing with an LCD screen. And I find this to be a much more liberating approach going forward. And so entering the flow is very beautiful because it provides meaning in life. You know, for me, entering the flow state is where all of my best photos happen. It's where I find most joy in life, frankly, through simply moving my physical body, going for long walks, and sort of just entering this meditative state of simply being present. It's such a beautiful thing. You know, I think this is to me the joy of street photography. You know, it's the art of walking and observing and just enjoying the sounds, the sights, the smells of the street. And so, yeah, I encourage you to embrace this mindset, to embrace the flow state, and to make more photos, and to engage your intuition more, and to allow these moments to come more naturally. And so, yeah, some thoughts about the street photography flow state today. You know, I find that this is a very critical mindset shift, a very critical discussion to have. It's not necessarily something that I can teach like with a 1, 2, 3, here are the best tips for entering the flow state, but by showing you some behind the scenes videos and some contact sheets and some of these photos, I hope that you have a better understanding of what I mean by the flow state and how you can achieve this thing. And so if you want to read more blog posts or see more videos on street photography, feel free to check out my website at dantecicifo.com. We have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/streetphotography. You can go ahead and watch some of the videos there as well. Share it with a friend if you find these videos informative. Appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.